Good Erev Shabbos. This week we have the opportunity to read from two parshios, Parshas Matos and Parshas Maseh. The beginning of Matos devotes the beginning of the parsha to the section of verbal commitments, the Nedarim, Shvuos, vows and oaths, and the importance of keeping one's vow and one's oath. It's interesting the way the Torah phrases the directive to keep one's commitment that one makes. Ish kiyid or neder Hashem, a person makes a vow to Hashem, or hishav shvua, or he makes an oath, lesser Israel nafsho, to forbid something upon himself, says the Torah, lo yachel devaro, he should not desecrate his words. It's interesting, this word of lo yachel is an expression of desecration. You should not violate your words. Rashi points that out, there shouldn't be a chilul, a desecration to your words. What's interesting about this language is that normally the language of chilul, of desecration, is used for something that is holy. Something which is holy, you should not desecrate. Something which has a certain profound status, you should not desecrate. In our case, however, we're talking about making a vow or an oath about something mundane. I make a vow, I'm going to eat this or not eat this, as the Gemara in Nedarim or Shvuos talks about at length. So why is this language of chilul, desecration, attached to that? Of course, it's important to keep your verbal commitments, but why does the Torah seem to go the extra mile of stressing that you must keep your word, otherwise you're desecrating it? So what's interesting is the rabbis have taught us about the four different categories in the Bria, the four different categories in creation, starting with a domem, an inanimate object, such as a rock, doesn't have any life to it, doesn't die, doesn't have an expiration date. You look at a rock lying on the ground that could have been there for thousands of years. The next level is a tzomeach, something which grows, it has a shelf life, it has a starting point and an end point, trees, grass, vegetation. This is the concept of a tzomeach. And then the next level is a chai, a living being. A living being, it can be an animal, it can be fish, it can be birds. These are living beings. And the highest level, the rabbis have taught us, is the human being. But the human being is known as a medaber, a speaking human being. The difference between a human being and an animal is that both creations are born, both creations reproduce, both creations eat and sleep, and both creations die. But the difference is that man was imbued with speech. Now, what does speech mean? Speech doesn't necessarily mean sounds, because animals also make sounds. The idea of speech, as the rabbis taught us in the beginning of the Torah, it says, "Vayitzer Hashem Elokim es Adam min ha'afar." God created Adam from dust of the earth. Vayipach ba'apav nishmas chayim, and He infused within Adam a living soul. And then you have that recipe over there: part body, part soul. God mixes it together. Vahi Adam nefesh chayim. Man is a nefesh chayim. The Onkelos in Parshas Bereishis explains that a nefesh chayim means ruach mamala, a speaking spirit. What this represents, the Onkelos is telling us, is that speech represents the higher wisdom of the human being. So it's really an incredible gift that we have this speech, because it's not just an ability to communicate with words. This reflects the wisdom that God blessed the human being with. So this just underscores how important and what a grave responsibility it is to take our speech seriously. With our speech, we can build worlds, we can build bridges, we can engage in the highest form of prayers, tefillah, and we can help human beings with encouragement and supportive words. But also with our words, we can be so destructive. In fact, sometimes, God forbid, as the Mishnah says in other places, if someone humiliates somebody else in public, they can lose their internal portion of the world to come. This just shows how important speech is. So when the Torah tells us in this week's parsha, when you make a commitment with your speech, we view the speech as something which is so profound and so holy that if you do not follow through, that is an area of desecration. Hence the words, Lo Yachal Dvar. So as we are in the weeks now before Tisha B'Av, we are just starting Rosh Chodesh Av, this coming Shabbos. It's important to remember what the power of speech can do. The power of speech can build people, can build society, and it can destroy people and destroy society. It's all up to us how we use our speech. Let us remember the lesson of this week's Parsha, and always remember how important our speech is. A good Erev Shabbos.